train to depart from the station. Y'all get in your seats. Please bring them to the upright lock position. I'd like to welcome you this morning to Part 3 of Gardening Limitations. If we'd have had one more snowstorm, we'd probably had all 4 of these things in 1 month. Appreciate you working, those of you who came last week, working with us on our reschedule from the ice storm. Had a really good turnout last week. Looks like we got a great turnout again today. We're going to talk about gardening today with weed control agents and handy dandy tools and nice water hoses and sprayers and all kinds of stuff. As always, if you got any questions, bring them up while we're working. And with that, I'm just going to leave it. Sean Davis, there you go.
Good morning. Good morning. It looks like it's been like only a week since I started. It was only a week. Next time will be a month. Do we have anybody that's new with us today? Hasn't been at a previous presentation? Well, but most of y'all know about the group, so I don't have to go through that little hoo-hoo. If you are not on the mailing list and you want to be on it, there's an opportunity over there to do that. We do have one new person with us that I'd like to introduce today, Taylor. Hi, Taylor. Taylor is a senior at Putnam County High School, and he's in the audio, video, and movie making class, who told me this morning, I didn't know this was exactly how it was going to work, but the part 1 is already on YouTube. So don't make any comments about my southern drawl. I haven't seen it. Part 2, he said, is ready to upload. So that's what I got to send the link out to the vendors. So we'll see how bad it really is. So, I do have a few announcements this morning. To reminder, let's see. The last call on the Cobra Head weeders, those that want to order them, I've got $38 covers the long handle tool. I'm going to wait till I get everybody's money so I don't have a big credit card bill. So if you need to pay me, you can do that today or give me some information. Let's see. I think we need one other food volunteer for April. If you will see the lady chowing down on the popcorn in the pink sweatshirt there, she's in charge of food next time. That would be my mom. Reminder that Ace Gray is having Customer Appreciation Day on Saturday, March 22nd. They're going to have a lot of vendors and they're going to have a lot of sales and stuff going on. So it's a big deal for them. It is also opening day for specialty ornamentals. Those of us who shop there up at Close Place in Watkinsville, it's going to open on the 22nd. David said that we got 2 habitat houses going on in Putnam right now. Do you want to speak?
One of them is nearing completion, and we'll find out in the next couple of weeks when we can schedule the landscaping. It looks like it'll probably be sometime in April, and if you're on Sean's mailing list, we'll let you know about volunteer days when we can come by. And what we'll do is work on the beds and install foundation plants and the plantings around. The Master Gardener Group kind of helps support that for the habitat houses in Eaton. So if you're in the loop, we'll let you know. We would appreciate your help coming by with tools and your strength.
And we also have the gang, I call the gang, which is kind of like, if you want to say, closest thing we have to a board, has approved the expenditure of funds to do a landscaping project at the Putnam County Extension Office. Had drawn up a landscaping plan. Those that are in the new class, trust me, it won't happen until after you graduate, because your grunt work's going to be needed in order to do this installation. So we're going to do this minor, but we desperately need some beautification to our extension office. So I'll be letting you know. I'm hoping target date for that's about the end of April sometime, and I'm hoping maybe a 2-day turnkey. Bring everybody there. We get enough people. We do it. We're in. We're out. Okay. So we're kind of excited about that. All right, as we've done before, we've got a couple of sponsors that we want to thank. Our Ace and Gray has been, it helps us, and it's going to continue to help us in Part 4 that you're going to see. They've been really good, have an excellent garden center for those of y'all who get an opportunity to run that way. And our donation of funds to help with the field from the Farm Bureau continues and will be there throughout all 4 parts of our presentation. Mostly, I'm going to tell you this morning at 9:30, it looked like a bunch of bees. I delivered all the stuff here, but they've got this down to a routine, so all my wonderful friends who showed up this morning to help get set up so that I wouldn't be nervous about it. So let's talk a little bit about what the program's about. If you're in Part 3 and you're not new, then you know what the program's about. But what we were trying to do was to address some of the limitations that you have in your life and ways that you can use new things to do that. We had the first 2 parts of the presentation were really designed, each one of them can stand alone, but they do sort of build upon themselves. And hopefully by the time we get to the last one, you'll get an opportunity to see how you would have used the things from the first 3 to affect the things that are in Part 4. But we're addressing not only just physical limitations, which all of us end up having at some point in time, it doesn't matter how old you are, but the time and space. And today is going to be a prime example of those things that will save you time. I think is the biggest thing. But know that oftentimes, just because you have a limitation doesn't mean you can't do something. It can open up a door for you to explore new things or new possibilities in your life. Regardless of what we do, we want you to figure out a way that you're going to be a little smarter in your gardening techniques and methods. As I've said before, some of these things you might not use but 1 time or 2 times or 3 times a year, but that 1 or 2 or 3 times is going to save you a lot of effort and a lot of work. Come on in. So you've seen this slide, you're going to see this slide, you're going to see this slide again next time. I think I told you last time that I have to do some new cost recovery government UBA form now to document the donation things. And I have done that almost out except for Part 4. And just to give you an idea, and I haven't done all of Part 4's material yet, it's about $7,000 worth of stuff been donated for these 4 parts of this presentation. So, you know, without these guys that are here that you're seeing in these slides, we wouldn't be having as much fun and we'd just be doing it. I've been asked to do this program again, of course, several times, and what I've told everybody is if I do it without the stuff, it's just not the same. I think one of the things that has been successful in this is that you get the opportunity to actually look at something in your hands and then make a decision about whether or not you want to spend your money on it if it's not available in your local store. So that was the main reason why I went to these folks and said, hey, you know, this is what I want to be able to do. So everybody have a ticket. Does everybody have a blue ticket? All right, at the end of the program, what we'll do is we'll draw just like we did before, and you can come up and pick what you want. That was part of the agreement we had with the vendors, is that we would give away whatever they donate. So if you do not have one, get one beforehand. Our little disclaimer is going to be it's in a part of your packet, because just to know that I got no connection, he's got no connection, they sure ain't paying me to do this. And if you do something stupid with your tool, it's not my fault. When you leave today, be sure you pick up your packet. Most of you know because you picked up your packet before, but it'll have all the information in it with the flyers and on everything that we present today. There should be something in there from every item. So if you don't remember what it looked like, and your handout will follow along with the numbered slides as we go through them. All right, so what did we figure out in Part 1 and Part 2? That having the right tool can save you some time, make life a little bit simpler. I know that several of you have spent some money since this started, which was not surprising, and that you might not use them every day, but that there are a lot of gadgets that can help us to be make it a little bit easier. So if you enjoyed the things that you bought, then you'll see some things today you'll probably won't even want. Last week, it was last week, I usually say next month, we had a lot of happy people went home. Linda's already digging in the wood with some happy children. Now, I came up with a name, part 3, and I said irrigation and chemical application. I know some of the people thought, you use the chemical word. I don't know why, but it was already in print before I could come up with something niftier, so that's where we're at. But what we're talking about doing today is talking to you about easier irrigation techniques, and how to control some weeds mostly in your garden. We'll talk a little bit about turf, but I'm not a turf person because my yard's too big. But we'll talk about that. Last year and last summer, I learned 2 very important things from my gardening mentor, who taught me that, one, I was not watering my plants enough, and I was not feeding my plants properly and enough. Now, last year we had a good rain, and even though I know there was a lot of issues caused by too much rain, I'm going to tell you my plants look better than they've ever looked before. So, I mean, there may have been some downside to it, but it was very obvious that I had only been watering them enough during the growing season to keep them from croaking, and that was about it. So, from that, part of this program developed out that we're going to talk about today. Okay, so yesterday. This is the worst time for me because I haven't turned my irrigation system on yet. I'm planting as hard as I can plant, and if it didn't rain, then I've got to carry water to these places until then. So what we want to do is we want to talk first of all a little bit about drip irrigation. For those that may have known me in my previous life, knew that I actually could build anything out of PVC pipe. I mean anything. I've built dog pen things, I've built speaker stands, I've built all kinds of things. And at the time that was all there was. And it works great, however, what we ended up with is the heads associated with normal irrigation. I'm going to make a teacher mess and hope this won't take long. With normal irrigation, requires too much water pressure. The little shrub heads or the big sprinkler, the thing like that, they require a substantial amount of pressure to run through standard 3/4 inch PVC pipe in order to put out some water to your plants. Well, if all you're doing is watering with a water hose, you're going to have a hard time getting that pressure, sufficient amount of pressure to run standard shrub heads that fit on the top of a riser. Or at least I do now, I'm going to tell you. But the biggest thing we like about this is we're going to try to water some plants at the bottom rather than spraying on top. Now, I know Mother Nature rains on us, and then I sit there and say, well, why do we not want to water on top whenever she does? But we don't want to try to do it continuously. It causes a lot of foliar diseases that we try not to do. But then some plants don't mind being sprinkled on top. So, in today's presentation, I'm not going to be going quite as fast from thing to thing to thing. There's some things I want to kind of explain. So if you got questions, just be sure to raise your hand. So we're going to talk a little bit about drip and how easy drip is. And the reason, I even talked to Keith about maybe putting on a drip in the fall, a drip irrigation installation class, because obviously today we can't do what we want to do. But I do have a company I'm going to present you with, but know that you can get these drip irrigation supplies in almost all kinds of places. But let me tell you, if you are going to buy them at Lowe's or Home Depot, I'm not going to beat up on them, but you're going to spend a bunches of money. They charge a fortune for the same things that companies that you can order them from don't charge that much for. Okay, so while I'm talking to you, I'm going to show you something here that I put this together last night. Don't do anything at the last minute. You're not really ready for this. Okay. There are three different kinds of fittings actually. There are what they call barb fittings, which I don't have one here because they're crap. And there's compression fittings, which I've got one here, but the compression fitting, which is what this one is, I'm not going to put in. I started buying these in the beginning. They're cheaper than what they call the Permalock fittings, which I'm not going to Permalock it in today. I'm just going to stick to them. The Permalock fittings are reusable. Compression fittings are not reusable. So you think this one costs a little bit more? Yeah, but it's not that much. However, this one is hard to put in for me, okay? But I'm telling you that basically what you're going to be able to do is if you just got a bunch of pots on your deck and that's all you got, then you can set up a little small irrigation system that will cover your deck and run to your closest spigot and water your plants on a schedule without having to go out there and do it yourself. And these little pieces, there's 1,000 different little pieces that go in. But realistically, what you're looking at is a piece of pipe. Now, I know that like Barbie's pipe's got holes in it, doesn't it? My pipe's solid because I'm running off of, to give y'all an idea, first of all, I don't have a fancy installed irrigation system that runs all over my yard. I can't do that. I pump out of a pond. And I can't put it on a timer. So I've got to go out there and do it. Well, here's what would happen. I turn on my little sprinkler, you know, and then do something, and 3 hours later say, oh crud, the sprinkler's still running. And I haven't moved it, and it's 9 o'clock at night, so it's too late to move it to another location. I had to stop that because I think that forgetfulness is getting worse. So, these little things are simply simple. They're plastic. You take and you punch the little holes in the little tubing. You take these little pieces, and they're going to tell you to use warm water. Spit works really good.
Especially after a cup of coffee.
Yeah, because it says to heat them up. And I mean, realistically, you stick this into this little hole. Okay, and normally I'm going to hide it in the grass and make it look good. And then, like this is called a drip emitter. This one emits 2 gallons per hour. Now, 2 gallons on a single plant is a lot. If I'm only going to run it 30 minutes though, what does that mean? I'm going to put out 1 gallon. They make these in quarter gallons and half gallons. You just stick them on the end of these little things. You run them over here with a little stake and put it at the base of your plant. Okay? We're going to see a video about this in a few minutes, but I just like at the last minute decided to do this. They got little fittings that connect it to your water spigot or to the end of a water hose. Okay? So to give you an idea, I've got some of my yard is on, turn on the pump and the sprinklers underground come up. Okay, but my beds that I have built around the house are not directly connected to the pond water. Okay, so I need to have a method to run over there. And what I do is use a water hose that comes from the central location that pumps out of the pond. So I build my little drip irrigation system in the flower bed, and then basically I build this little thing out of hard pipe. This is covered up with some little cute flower pot so it's not ugly in the yard. I come up here and screw this on, and I've got 3 different zones now off of this timer, which we'll talk about this timer in just a few minutes. Battery operated, doesn't require power like a lot of them. I can at least come and turn it on and start a little thing on my iPhone now that tells me 3 hours from now that I need to go turn the water off. But during that time, it's ran zone 1 for 45 minutes. It switched automatically over to zone 2, and then it switches over to zone 3. So don't think that you, in order to have something that makes your life easier, that you have to have a fancy, very expensive underground irrigation system. You don't. This is actually designed, and I don't use it the way it's designed. It's got a hook that comes to the back to screw to the spigot on the side of your house. That's what it's designed for. And so then you can come off of this. This comes in a oneer and a twoer and a threer, depending on which one you want to do. Then you could come off here and you could say, take this over here to the deck and water these 3 flower pots for 30 minutes. come over here and water these roses along the front of the deck for an hour, you know, and all that's programmed into this timer. This particular timer, we've got one of, we'll talk about in a few minutes. But they said these little, yes ma'am?
Once you put that thing together and get it all programmed, do you have to do it every year or every month, or how's it?
No, once you put the program in, it's good till the batteries die. Now, in my instance, I take the batteries out and remove my timers in the wintertime when I shut my irrigation system down. There's just no use in leaving it out there.
So you do have to take it into my inventory.
I do. That's the reason this part's detachable like it is for me, because as crazy as this sits on the ground like this, okay, and this is where my water hose screws on, and then here's where I screw on these little things to the end of the thing, and then the drip hose crunches into the end of that. So I'm not leaving it out in the winter.
I leave mine, I've got one in my little nursery, and that's what, you know, runs the irrigation in there. And I take the batteries out, but mine's connected to a spigot and it stays there, and I put in new batteries at the beginning of the season and off it goes. So it's probably 4 years old.
Yeah, they got like a 6-year warranty on the timer.
Do you physically have to turn that on and off, or can it go?
It can go by itself. I do. I have to physically turn it on and off because I'm pumping out the pond. And I don't have my pond pump on a timer. But if you had a spigot at the
You
house,
just open it, and it keeps it closed until it gets to the right time, comes on, and then it
Does
shuts
its
it
thing.
off.
excellent if you're going to be on vacation instead of asking your friends to come water your plant. Yes, ma'am.
What kind of protection do you have to have over that from the elements outside?
Well, you know, technically nothing. However, when we get to this timer, I'll talk a little bit about what I wanted to do based on. Before I buy something, I'm going to read a bunch of junk about it. So we'll get to it. But that's what I want you to learn out of this. And said, if you think there's interest in put down an actual class on how to do this in the fall, whenever my husband gets over the last 3 months and I don't fill up the basement again, we'll talk about this. But we're going to talk a little bit more about it. Oh, and just to show you, for those of you who do pump out of the lake, you need to, these things have little small orifices for openings for the water to come out of. This is what they call a micro sprinkler, and you think, oh, it's not very big. It puts out 25 gallons an hour. So it's still pretty good ways. If you've got plants that can stand to be watered overhead, you need to really filter your water. Whether you have to filter water from the city, that's kind of up to you. I don't really know whether you want to or not. But this is called a disc filter. It's an organic material filter. It's about $17. You put it in a line, and it runs through and it traps the crud, the organic crud from pond water. So if you pump from the lake, you know, you're going to really need something like this. It's designed to be drained down here at the bottom. I just usually unscrew it and take this off and wash it out somewhere else. But I didn't do it last time or twice the whole summer. Now, whether my pressure went down or not, I don't know. But, yeah. But if you think that's something you'd be interested in knowing, just let me know and we'll see. Yes, ma'am.
Quick question, is there minimum PSI pressure that you have to run?
Well, there is. And they say, and they'll give you, and I'm going to give you some excellent website links on how to do that. And they tell you, you should know your pressure coming out of the spigot, and you should know all this stuff. I just look it up to see if it works. And the pressure is pretty small. But the more things you do, the more emitters you put on it, the less pressure you're going to have. But that also varies in, this takes more water than this little jewel. So you kind of got to think about it. I stuck all of what I wanted on there, and like, do I know if this, I set a cup under this and let it run for 15 minutes. Then you take that water and you pour it in, and you can calculate how much you're getting out of it. Am I getting 2 gallons per minute out of every one of them? I don't know, but there's water coming out. That's enough to make my plants happy. So, yeah, you're going to need some minimum. If you put 40 things on a single spigot, you might not get quite as much. But on most households, that's all I've got running is a standard. This one's bigger because of a garden reason. You'll notice this end, but most of it's a standard 5/8 inch water hose. running across my yard from the place where I can screw it into my pump at the lake, at the pond. And it runs all the way like over here and screws into one of these things, and it still runs probably 25 years. So you can do a lot with it. And it's real, if it's screwed up, you know, if it's not doing like it wants to do, all you gotta do is take a pair of scissors, cut the end of it off. You don't have to mess with glue, which I never thought I'd say this is better than PVC, because I just think that's the greatest thing in the world. But you don't have to mess with it, it's easier to cut, and you can bend it and move it and go in curves and stuff without having to have all these special fittings to do. It is to me the changeover that I've made. Now, I might run conventional pipe in some regular places because I can put this in 3/4 and this is 1/2 inch. Now, you can buy this in 3/4, but know that the bigger the pipe you buy, the more water pressure you gotta have. The idea, concept being that you start off with big and go to a little, littler, because when you get to the end, you'll have more pressure. Yes, sir.
Do you have any problem with squirrels chewing on the black pipe?
No, but I have a wonderful Pomeranian who avoids it. But I don't, but I have heard people that they have that, you know, and they have stuff like that happen. I guess what I like about it is it's going to be interesting to see what happened this winter, because a couple of places I couldn't drain. The way I built it, I ran it up the side of a 4x4 post in a little ornamental well and put things there, so I couldn't physically drain that. So if I turn it on and it's busted, then I won't have to fix it, but easily repairable. But yeah, squirrels are not on this. All right, so since I made that much of a mess, we're gonna talk